What's up, Diet Ditchers? Happy Tuesday. How are you? So it's not live Wednesday, but it's live Tuesday. So I am Coach Courtney.
I am Coach Brandon.
And we're going to talk to you today about a post that we did yesterday. So Brandon posted...
It wasn't yesterday. It was unfortunately last week. We meant to get to it after the day, so it's a little delayed. It's been a little crazy around our household with fun stuff. But
we had the throwing up virus we've been passing around, so time has gone faster. So a post he posted that said, I know what to do, I just don't do it. Okay, so we wanted to talk about that today and give you guys some understanding as to... A lot of you guys raise your hand, and I'm sure we've probably all been there with a lot of things in our life where we're like, gosh, I just know what to do, but why don't I do it, right? So we want to give you guys some insight as to why and help you understand that it's not your fault. And when you can understand the concepts, today we're going to talk about values and beliefs. And once you can start to wrap your head around that, you're going to have a lot of aha moments and then kind of know where to work from that and understand again that it's not your fault, and it's just that you just don't have willpower.
So with that, you guys, I think it's helpful to understand that, I think for so many of us that are trying to create change in our life, I don't care if it's physical, I don't care if it's mental, emotional, I don't care if it's financial, relationship wise, whatever that may be, is, we feel that feeling of, the self-sabotage bug comes up and bites us, right? I don't know why I always do this to myself. Well, we want to help you kind of close the gap and get some better understanding here to understand that at all times we're trying to meet certain things in our life, right? Like if you look back to intentional eating and essential, what the hell was it? Intuitive eating, thank you. Basically, we're always trying to meet our needs in some shape or some form, our 6 human needs. But what we're going to talk about today is the things that direct our decisions. Because oftentimes the biggest thing that we try to help people understand is it's not our conditions, right? Like there's always something else out there that essentially is going to be more challenging or something that comes about. But it's our decisions in those moments in time that ultimately create the things in which we have in our life. And so the biggest thing that direct our decisions is our values and our beliefs. All right. Now, what is a value? Okay. We want to be able to define this a little bit. So essentially a value is an emotion that you either want to experience more of or experience less of. Okay. So think of that as something that we want to move towards and something that we want to move away from. All right. And this is where if you can get a better grasp and understanding for yourself regarding this, you can start to see that we all have our needs and we all have our values. And we can have two people can have the same value, but we can have different hierarchical standards of that value, and we can have different beliefs as to what it takes for us to get and meet that value in our life. Okay. And so
can you give them some examples of the value?
Well, so for myself, right? So the things that I want to experience more of in my life would be love, would be growth, would be essential happiness, would be joy, would be integrity, would be contribution, would be, those are the things in which I want to move towards. Okay. And things for me that I want to move away from would be regret. That's my biggest one. Would be lying, would be sadness, would be loneliness, would be depression, would be a lack of integrity. Those things is which I want to move away from. Okay. But now what's important is to understand that also we as human beings, we will do more to avoid pain than we will to create or experience pleasure. All right. And not
just silly, right? Because if you think about it, you're like, but I want all these things, but we will move faster and do more to get away from the things that we don't want.
And so it's not just literally like, ow, that really hurts, like literal physical, but more on the sense of what we associate to is the things in which we will move away from. We will do more to move away from the things than what we will to in which we create things. Right. So the same thing goes for like two people who certainty and adventure, right? Like two conflicting different things. If I'm somebody who wants to have certainty in my life, but adventure maybe on the other side of it, I'm going to do more to make sure I have certainty in my life than I do to promote adventure in my life. Okay. So I think to help us understand this, because I think sometimes this can get a little bit confusing. We're going to use an example for her in her past as to things that which continually came up for her is feeling like she was self-sabotaging herself with. You know,
Oh,
I mean,
you
you want me to foreshadow this color? Okay.
Yeah, I don't care.
So, I mean, what
I'm just here to
really
give you
helped
an
us kind
example.
of really understand this, you guys, was the something that we kept seeing with her, and I was doing it too, but it really was kind of light bulb for both of us once we kind of connected the dots with her. Was for forever, you know, if yet again, you know, Court's story, she's had food disordered eating, disordered patterns when it's come to those things, but you know, for a long time, she was trying to chase down this feeling of having a six pack, being strong, feeling lean, feeling confident, feeling all those kind of things, right?
Yeah, and most of it was after we had babies. I got back into the cycle of like, got to get my body back. So all you moms out there that have felt that of like, now I have to get back to where I was. That was when this really showed up in my life, just timeline wise.
And so, you know, she knew this thing that she wanted, right? She wanted to get lean. She wanted to get a six pack. She wanted to feel strong. She wanted to get her fitness back. Right? Like, you know, I think yet again for moms, I can't speak for moms out there, but this is something we see oftentimes is I was at this level. I took, you know, basically 10 months off of doing the thing that I was doing up here, and now I'm down at this level, right? And so it was on the sense of I know what I want, because that's the other thing we see so often with our clients is like, no, I know what I want. I know the goal at the end of this thing. I just keep doing things to kind of foul it up, all right? And so what Court would do is, you know, we were working with coaches, we were working with other nutritional guidance, other coaching relevance of we were following macros. I mean, you were doing RP, you were doing a lot of different nutritional guidance programs, and it was literally almost like clockwork of what 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks into the program,
Usually 4.
you would tend to habitually fall off of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, so I'd get to this. So I do the thing, you guys, right? And we've probably all done this where like, I'm following it to a T, like excited in the beginning. And then the farther I went, the less motivated I was. And I'd actually start to see results. And then I'd be like, well, I don't know. Like I literally remember saying to myself, well, I must just not want it that bad, because Saturday would come around and I'd be like, but I really want a glass of wine. And then I'd be like, well, I guess I really don't want it that bad. Call it self-sabotage, call it lack of willpower, call it whatever it was. And then literally I'd be like, well, I guess I'm probably going to be done, because I can't stick to this, because I really want to enjoy my glass of wine and I want to have a life and I want to have all of those things that we probably all said when we've been on strict, like restrictive plans. And so I didn't understand why I couldn't stick with it, right? And it was usually 3-4 weeks. And then, you know, for everyone out there that's, you know, maybe done a 75 hard or a whole 30 or all of those things, right? You get a certain point in and then you're like, fuck, this is just too hard. I don't want to do this. I must just not want it bad enough. It's not worth it. All those things that go through your head.
And so, and so we'd look at that, and like the frustration would constantly be there. I'm like, I don't know what's wrong. Maybe I'll just restart this, and I'll need to, you know, if I have a pep talk with myself, or you know, can you hold me more accountable to these things?
Can I get all the things out of my house?
These things out of the house. I think for most of you guys out there, you can relate in some manner and some form of this, right? But it wasn't until we like took a step back and really looked at and kind of started asking the question of like, well, what are your values that you want to move towards? What are the values that you want to move away from in your life?
And let's be honest, this was actually years later when I started going down my journey of like really healing my issues with food and body. So I was far enough away from it, like I wasn't in the bottle with it. So if you're in this right now, it might be a little bit harder to see it. But I was far enough outside of the bottle that we really started understanding needs and values and beliefs. And that's when we had these like aha moments.
And so we'll kind of bring ourselves back to that time frame. Is during that time frame, what would you say your top 3 values that you wanted to move towards or experience more of were?
Well, that I knew or that I didn't know.
Well,
so the values I had were freedom, right? So I really valued freedom, but I didn't realize it at that moment. So I'm just going to say that now. I valued happiness, and then I valued quality time.
Okay. So freedom or independence,
Yep.
happiness, and quality time. Okay, those were the 3 values that she wanted to essentially move towards. All right. Now what was your kind of backtracking? What would be the 3 values that you essentially wanted to move away from or not experience as well as you could?
Well, I wanted to not hate my body. I wanted to have a 6-pack.
So I guess what would that be on a value standpoint?
I wanted to not feel fat.
Okay.
And I wanted to feel like I had control over my food.
Okay, so control. Okay, so certainty would be somewhere in that ballpark. Okay, so essentially on one end, where you had independence, happiness, and quality time. The other one was certainty.
Not not feeling bad.
So
in my body.
essentially, health or fitness.
Yeah.
In some regard.
Yep.
Okay, and then what was the last one?
What did I say? It was essentially the health and fitness.
Okay, so
I wanted physical
those
change.
are essentially the values that she had for herself at the time frame. Okay, now the big part that comes into this is her beliefs. Okay, because two people can have the same exact value structure, but the belief or essentially the rules that they attach in order to meet these things can be completely two different things. Right? Like we may have the same value of health and fitness, but for her, perhaps at that time frame, the only way that she could feel that she was experiencing that was having a six pack. Where for me, I could be other end of that of feeling like all I need to do is go for a walk every single day and I get that value met. Okay, so that's why two people can have the same values, but the beliefs and the structure and the rules in which they associate that to can be two completely different things, right? Like, have you ever had like a significant other or a coworker or a best friend that you thought you knew to a T, and then all of a sudden react in a manner in which you don't even know like who that person is? It's probably because their belief structure of what they're trying to meet regarding their values may not necessarily meet up exactly the same. And this is where that self-sabotage thing comes into that, okay? So when Court would start down the realm of following macros and getting a coach and following this restrictive dietary plan in order to meet essentially her values over here of feeling healthy, which regarded around having a six-pack.
But let's just say I thought in order to be happy, I had to have a six pack, right?
Yeah.
I thought I had to look a certain way for me to be happy.
Yeah. So, but I mean, and those pertain back and forth, right? And so, but then she was also trying to get certainty and feeling like she had control over following this blueprinted plan, right? But what we'd also see on there, it was also conflicting with her number one value on a hierarchical standpoint of feeling independent, right? Because when you're being told, like for you, do you feel, if you're not the one that's feeling like you're making the decisions in your life, do you feel like you're trapped? Yes.
Yeah.
So it's conflicting with her number one value over here. So it may be a high precedent over here, but sooner or later, initially, it's going to conflict with her number one value over here. So yet again, in a short period of time, she's willing to sacrifice this because right now she feels that the feeling of having a six pack and feeling certain overweighs this. But this one carries the trump card because after a while it slowly starts to build up the underlying pain of not feeling like she's the decision maker in her life or feeling independent or feeling connected, right? Because yet again, if those were 1 and 2 of feeling connected and feeling like your quality time with somebody else is right, like for how many of you guys out there that food is a social and a connection and a way of meeting your need for love,
and that's
right?
most of us.
Yeah, and that's a lot of us, right? Like, so sooner or later, I'll do this plan because it promises me a six pack. But if it starts conflicting with the thing over here I love most, I'm going to bring myself back over here eventually, sooner or later, which it gets looked at as self-sabotage when really she was just playing the game to the rules in which she's made up for herself.
Yeah. Well, and if you look at it, you guys, I think what was really interesting was that I didn't realize it in the time, right? Like I didn't realize that freedom was my top value, which is funny because if you look at like everything we've done, like we've been entrepreneurs basically our entire lives, and like I hate being told what to do, and I literally am like, don't tell me what to do. I'll make the decision. Sure, I'll get up at 3 a.m. to go to work, but if I had a job and somebody told me to do that, I'd be like, no, there's just no way, right? So the irony was that I had these conflicting beliefs. Like I believed that in order to be happy, I had to have the perfect body. I believed that in order to have a good body, I had to follow this restrictive plan. I had to do all these things, right? But then I was also like, well, I really want to be happy, but what I believed I had to do to be happy made me completely unhappy, right? And so there was always this confliction, and it made no sense to me in the moment because I didn't understand my values. Like I never really sat down and said like, well, what do I really value, right? And I remember like he was going through his coaching program, and that was the question, and I was like, well, freedom. And then I had this like light bulb moment. I was like, oh my God, my entire life, I put myself in a box with rules to have control over my food, but all I really ever wanted was food freedom. But I also didn't think that was possible, right? So I had this belief that it wasn't possible to have freedom and have the body I wanted and be happy, right? And so, like, for so many of you, this probably makes a lot of sense, right? So, I mean, I don't know what you think, but I think it's really fun to sit down and go, well, what are my top values, like, right? You know what? And like, you can Google, like, a list of values, right? If you're having trouble with like what is a value, what is a belief, but then start to think about what do you think is true in your life to get where you want to be, right? And so much of this is conditional, right? Like, well, you got to diet if you want to lose weight, you got to this if that you wanted that, right? And like, what you're going to start to see if you can map this out is that most of it's not true, right? Like, the biggest shift, and if you guys take anything from this, is that I thought I had to have the body to be happy, but the truth was I had to be happy, and then the body showed up. Right? It was a completely opposite. It was the when then game. It was the I have to do all of these things, where instead I actually just learned how to be happy. And when I learned how to be happy, all of that other BS that was going on just fell by the wayside, because I truly lean into like, these are my values. My values are freedom and happiness and being with people. And when I started just living into those things, all of the other things that I desired showed up, because I let go of the rules and I let go of those beliefs. And once I let go of those beliefs, lo and behold, none of it was ever true.
Well, and that's what we walk through all of this in our 12-week program. Like, these are the things in which we tackle. Like, yes, we go over the food, we go over, nutritional education and all those kind of things, but really we go into the bigger pieces of the puzzle of really helping you identify of like, well, this is really my core values of what I want to experience in my life and who I want to be every single day, right? Like, there's a lot of things that I think we want to feel like we're trying to create in our lives, but we also don't ask the question, okay, well, what do you feel like has to happen in order for you to create that in your life? And I know for me, when I was going through that, it was oftentimes I was setting up beliefs and rules to establish those values that were so far-fetched and outlandish that I couldn't create those on a real day, let alone like every single day. And sooner or later, yet again, we will do more to avoid pain than we do to create pleasure in our life. And sooner or later, like, you may have this goal that you want to establish, but if it's conflicting with your higher value structure and you don't understand that, you're always guaranteed to fall back into what looks like self-sabotage and like, I know what to do, I just don't know why I can't follow through with it. And I promise you, it's because you have a value constriction or a value confliction. Yep. What's going on internally. And so, I think the part and the beauty part of this is if you can identify this and really allow yourself that this is where all the freedom comes into this. Like Cora always says, it's no longer living in this box of rules, but understanding you get to flow within boundaries and set boundaries that you get to strive and create in. No longer are you living in this like confined life that you can't have pleasure and the things in which you want to create in your life simultaneously.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's a societal thing, to be honest, of like, you have to work hard, you have to do the thing, you have to whatever, like, it can't be easy, it can't be simple, and like, that's just not true, right? And so if you follow us at all, what we want you to understand is like, it can be simple, it can be easy, right? But we gotta get you to expand your belief system and expand how you think about things so that you can actually understand what's going on deeper, because it's not just that you don't have willpower, it's not that you're just a self-sabotager. Like, once you start to understand these things and you can shed light on them, right? We always go back to awareness. Once you can have awareness, then you can start to decide like, well, is that true? Is that real? Is that mine? And then you just shift and it becomes simple. So hopefully that helps you guys understand that, because I know there's so many of us and we still do it in places in our life. And I'm like, why am I not doing that? Right? And it's just asking deeper questions and getting yourself to go there. And a lot of times that takes somebody else asking the questions to you, which is why we have a coach program of just seeing things, because we don't know what we don't know and we can't see what we can't see. But sometimes those certain questions can show up and you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I had no idea. Right? And so, hopefully that makes sense.
Well, and I think the last part of this, you guys, is understand that everything that you do, literally everything that you do, how you talk to yourself, how you look at yourself, the things you do or do not do in your life, the things that you eat or do not eat in your life, there's reasons and purpose behind them. And oftentimes they're coming from an unconscious reaction, right? And so if we can identify these things, then that's where the process of you being the creator is really where the transformation comes from. It's not just, follow this, blueprinted plan and live within the side of these things. And then at the end of this, go back to doing what you were doing before. This is where you get to create true understanding for yourself. And then that way, anything is possible. I will invite you guys, if this does kind of hit in a place where like this speaks to you and this sounds intriguing and this kind of is almost like that light bulb it was for us, like we'd love to have you reach out to us. Leave a comment, leave a message, whatever that may be. Schedule a conversation with us and see how maybe the 12-week program might be a good fit for you or not, and see, just kind of help answer any questions.
Yeah.
Tiffany.
Hi, Tiffany. We're so happy to see you too. We haven't been on here in a while. So we appreciate you guys.